What is going on, guys? Shady Mike Gaming, super excited to bring you guys today's video. Today we're going to be taking a look at first and foremost some experimental sliders that I'm dropping that have some changes that I'm kind of on the fence on making, and also we're going to be talking about some approaches as to how you can make my sliders play better, and realistically how you can make any sliders play better. So first and foremost, my channel schedule and uploading plans have been a little bit thrown off by the world-ending virus that we're all currently facing, so apologize for that. Still got some things coming down the pipeline, but plans have been thrown off just a little bit by that. But realistically, right here I want to kind of respond to some of the feedback, good and bad, of my slider set and really sliders in general. And I think it starts a lot off with the mindset. So I mean, first and foremost, the one thing I've always said about sliders, number one thing I will always say about sliders are, number one is they're not the end all be all. Sliders are not just magical settings that as soon as you plug them in are going to make your gameplay perfect for you. One thing about sliders is, you know, the sliders are going to be tailor-made and perfect for the person that made the sliders. Now, my sliders may be perfect for me, but they're probably not going to be perfect for you. And I would argue that if you get a set of sliders rather, and plug everything in, you're going to have to change something to make up for the difference between you and the slider creator, because obviously we share sliders with thousands of people, but we can really only do it from one person's point of view. So one thing that's the number one thing I would always say is, when you do get a slider set, whether it's mine or somebody else's, expect to make changes and expect to have to make changes. So, you know, first and foremost, I guess what I would say is, number one, some of the feedback from the community is that they can't stop the CPU. And my response to that is, if you can't stop the CPU, you have two choices, or two options, or two choices. And that's, number one, get better on ball defense. Or number two, which is the one I like the best, stop playing on ball defense. So this is where we talk about the sliders and how they're made. I don't play on ball defense. I never have, never will. The reason I don't is because, one, it takes too many ratings out of the picture and relies too much on player skill. So I can make, you know, a terrible on ball defender play elite on ball defense, and I don't really like that. I like the ratings to matter, and that's why I've always played off of the ball. And you have to keep in mind that my sliders are made to be played off the ball, because that's how I play and that's how I test them. Now, one thing that's really important about that is, and one of the main reasons I play off ball defense, and I've been saying it for a long time, is, let's call it what it is. On defense, the CPU has access to animations that we as users cannot trigger. If you're getting murdered in the paint by Anthony Davis, when they throw it down to him, switch off of him, play the passing lanes, do whatever. But I personally don't play on ball defense, and I've always tweaked my sliders to be that way. But that may cause, if you do play on ball defense, like I said, you either have to be better, which a lot of the competitive level guys are. No different tips and tricks and stuff like that to get stops, but I've always had a lot of trouble defending the CPU when they drive, because I didn't have access to certain contact animations that the CPU will play out when my guy isn't being controlled. So always, you know, take that into account if you are having issues stopping the CPU. That's the number one thing that I would recommend changing. If you are having issues with CPU field goal percentage or just can't stop the CPU. Number two, I would say to change in that situation is, simply put, just dropping CPU shooting sliders, you know, usually by increments of one. Those sliders are very sensitive, but that's more of a skill level. If you're struggling that much, feel free to, you know, tweak, you know, if you CPU shooting, you know, 20 20 of 25 from three, drop the 3-point slider. If they're not missing from mid-range, drop the mid-range slider. If they're not missing layups, drop the layup slider one tick. And I always say drop it by a tick, play another game. And those sliders are extremely sensitive. And then on the other spectrum, I have a lot of people tell me, hey, sliders are way too easy, blah blah blah. So that's where you have to kind of take a personal approach. Again, you look at myself, I'm a simulation player, play offline. So I play offline, and if you are a super competitive online or park player and know all exploits and things of that nature, yeah, these sliders probably are going to be a little bit easy for you, and they're probably going to be easier for you because you're probably a better player than me, and I openly am ready to admit that. So what you have to do is then take the exact opposite approach. What's easy for me? Am I getting to the basket too easy? Drop the ball handling. Am I making too many layups? Drop the layups. Too easy getting open looks, you know what I'm saying? Up CPU defensive pressure, steals, things of that nature. Whatever you can do to kind of mitigate the areas that you're dominating in. And that's one of the number one things that I've always said has to be an approach, just because the skill level is so different with this community being so mixed. Guys that just play off minute, 12-minute quarters, guys that play off minute, 8-minute quarters, things of that nature. And then you have that competitive scene where it's all about meta and knowing different exploits, and this behind the back move or whatever is unstoppable, all that good stuff. I'm not into any of that, but if you are and you're trying to bring that offline, you got to understand that you probably are going to have a pretty significant advantage over people that aren't doing that stuff. Next, I would say the good thing I will say is, with those being the number 1 and 2 complaints, hey, this is too easy, or hey, this is too hard. I think that means we're doing something right. I think that means we have a certain level of balance, and I think that means we're doing something right. So pretty much next here, one of the most common questions I get, or a lot of people ask, like what my settings are or what my controller settings are. So I'm just going to go through, let you guys see everything that I use in terms of settings. I actually haven't changed any of this stuff to my knowledge, so I will give you guys the opportunity to see this stuff. It's, to my knowledge, all default, but just to answer some of those questions, I've had certain people kind of tweak these passing sliders and say it's had some good results. So I'll definitely be open to looking into that, or if anyone has any suggestions there, let me know in the comments. And then I guess I'll also show you coaching settings. Everything's pretty, standard. I do have Ace on. You guys know in years past I have turned that off, but we'll see how that goes. Play vision, I have light and full, like to showcase everything. Team communication, I keep that off because it's annoying. I have freelance series order on dynamic and then do not repeat. I don't know why I put it this way, but I don't know. I just didn't want them to call the same plays over and over again, so I thought maybe that would help. I'm not even 100% sure if it does, but now I want to get into these experimental sliders. The experimental sliders are in the description, and I just want to talk through some of the changes that I made and just kind of explain them so they don't seem completely crazy. So number 1 is the CPU tendencies. Yes, I did go back to default with the maxed out 3-point rating. And the reason I did this is because I am expecting to make sweeping tendency changes to whatever roster that I'm using, and then share those guys with you at some point in the future. Yes, right now that will result in an increase in points in the paint. We know the CPU plays better with the default tendencies. We know that's been a thing in 2K for probably 5 or 6 years now. But I just wanted to get the game to a point where I was happy with the way the CPU offense looked, even if it resulted in messed up points in the paint. And for those of you that follow me on Twitter know I'm mostly talking about guys pulling up from mid-range on fast breaks. It's annoying. I hate it. I don't really want to see any more of that. So that's why I decided to go with the default tendencies. One other thing, and even with me giving you guys advice in terms of playing off-ball defense and things of that nature to help you against the CPU, a lot of the feedback that I got, simply put, was that just the CPU was making too many contested shots. Tried to tweak that a little bit. I've tweaked rebounds, tried to balance that out a little bit between the user and the CPU. And a big one that's well, one of the two big ones, because there's a couple really big sweeping changes that, again, I don't know if I'm gonna keep, but we'll see. I wanted to make the layup animations a little bit clean. I felt like every time you drive in the paint, it was like you were driving against the bad boy Pistons. So I wanted to try and clean up the layup animations a little bit, but what that did was it kind of opened the paint up a lot, so much so that to the point where it may be too easy to score in the paint. So that's why the set is still experimental. I want to get some more testing, some more input on that before I make those changes permanent. I tried to lower the layup success, to kind of counteract the lack of contact, but we will see in that to see if that helps. I also trying to see my list here. I also messed around with the offensive consistency sliders, trying to make runs a little bit less drastic. That was a lot of feedback, just the 2K typical comeback AI, where we're trying to combat that. We'll see how we feel. We'll see how I did with that. I'm not sure. And then a couple things on the set that I changed that I think automatically I don't like. I maxed out the CPU shooting fouls to because there was less user contact. I felt like I wasn't going to get fouled enough, but then now I kind of feel like I'm getting fouled too much. That'll probably drop down from that 100 that I have it at. And then I also put attempt dunks, the tendency, at like 90, and I kind of already don't like that. If you've taken a look at some of the footage in the background, it is using the experimental set. It seems a little bit ridiculous at times. Like, guys like LeBron are literally unstoppable, so when driving, so I'll have to kind of we gotta look at that, because that's probably gonna have to come back down to where we had it. But yeah, so these experimental sliders are in the description. We will see what we think about them, and heck, that's the thing about experimental sliders, right? You don't have to implement all of the things that are in the set. We could add a few of these changes to the set, if some of it's done right and some of it isn't. We'll see. That's the whole point of the experimental slider set and the GIF that I posted on the community tab of my YouTube as well. But other than that, guys, this is Shady Mike. Seriously, I know probably your favorite YouTubers are afraid to talk about it, but stay safe out there, everybody. This virus is really serious. It's very serious for people that have pre-existing conditions. So try to practice the social distancing. Don't go out if you don't have to. Don't eat out if you don't have to. That's a really big one. But seriously, everybody, stay safe, stay blessed. Shady Mike, I'm out.